now in the process of raising about 15 million. And this is the most recent model.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it's really not, it's a very different business than yours, but I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of how I model and how I, approach these things, just to kind of give you so what as I mentioned earlier, I tend to use a lot of tabs and then have each tab focus on a particular area of interest.
Right.
And then if you look here, each of the yellow tabs has yellow input cells at the top. And then at the bottom of each of these yellow tabs are all the, gory calculations. Sometimes they're complex, but, I don't, those are at the bottom. I don't, the user doesn't need to see those. They can if they want to, but, they probably have better things to do. So the math is at the bottom, but each of the yellow tabs are yellow tabs. I'll go into some more detail here in a second, but I want to give you sort of a general overview of how I kind of organize and structure these things. Then we have the output and or exhibit tabs. So, here we've got some standard financial statements, accounting statements, balance sheet projections for 5 years, cash flow by quarter, balance sheet for 2 years by quarter, cash flow statement over here, income statement, just the P&L, the standard accounting stuff. But then, we have, for instance, the funding gap, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime we make any changes to any of the yellow tabs, and, the formulations will be different for any company in every industry, but ultimately we want to know how much money we need to raise from the outside and when. So what does this tell us? This chart tells us that the most they're ever going to need to raise is about 27.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where this bottoms out, and then the slope turns positive. What does that mean? That means that the company has started generating more cash than it's spitting out internally, so it's cash flow positive.
Right.
So for all these first 10 quarters or so, they're going to be hemorrhaging cash. They're going to have to keep, raising capital because there's a gap. And, what this tells us is that if they raise now about 10 million, that'll give them about a year runway. And then they need to raise, another, let's say 10 million for another year beyond that. And then another 10 million to get them to the full amount.
Right.
And this is something that, in any model, one should be able to look at very quickly and say, okay, well, I've made all these changes to my inputs and my assumptions. What does that do to my funding gap? Does that increase it? Does it accelerate the time frame in which I need that funding? And if so, is it beyond where I want it to be? Well, then I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and adjust my inputs in various places to slow down the growth rate, or maybe find some cost savings, or maybe find a way we can, generate more revenue with the same investment. It's very much a trial and error kind of a process. Once we've built the model and gotten the math right, the calculations right, then, adjusting the inputs is really a process that never ends. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's as you're always going to get new information from your suppliers, from your vendors, from your potential customers. Market conditions are always going to change. The prices that you're able to command from the marketplace might go up sometimes, they might go down sometimes.
Sure.
So you want to have something that you can quickly change those assumptions and then see what it does to your funding gap. I'll take you through, a couple of the input tabs, just to, again, this is very different from your business, but what we're doing here is we have all these assumptions, average months it takes for a company on the platform to raise capital.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I have a drop-down menu so that we can select from that as opposed to, for whatever reason I did it that way. Then, the number of ventures that we fund in any given quarter at any different average level. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this tells us that we're assuming that in quarter 6 of operations, we're going to complete successfully 10 deals for $5 million raises. And we're going to complete in that same quarter 125 deals for a $500,000 raise.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not going to bore you with the details
No,
because
that's great.
It's not necessarily applicable. It's definitely not applicable to you, but
Yeah,
just to give it a sense.
but it's just general idea is like I can definitely switch, just get the right measurements and then get the right suit for the the whole project.
Yeah, and I don't imagine this is a fairly complex model. I don't imagine that yours would be this complex.
Yeah.
But this has a lot of moving parts. We have to make a lot of assumptions, percentage of successful deals, and all of that sort of thing.
Right.
Then let me show you some of the more general tabs. I mean, we got working capital assumptions, and this is where we put our assumptions for any kind of working capital needs. How much cash do we not need? Operating cash do we need on the balance sheet at any given time? How many days do we assume it's going to take our customers or clients to pay us? In your case, there could be some complexity in modeling that.
Right, we do
have a lot of progress payments and all that.
Absolutely, we do.
So probably what I would do is the input would be the total price of the ship that you're going to deliver, the estimated date of delivery, and then the model would automatically work backwards from that and say, okay, well, you're going to deliver a ship in at the end of 2027, and it takes 18 months lead time to build that ship. So at the beginning of 2020, in mid 2025 is when you start to build it, and that's when you start to incur costs in building it. And then there would be, let's say we space out progress payments, and then automatically the model works backwards. Those are the kinds of things we might automate, or we might just have it so it's hard numbers. It really depends on what what we decide to do. But there's a lot of thought we have to put into how much we want to automate versus how much we want to input. The more automation, the fewer inputs. So then the less that the user needs to do. Okay. However, the problem with more automation is there's less flexibility. So we're very rigid with, okay, well, we deliver a ship and it's going to take us 18 months and there are 5 progress payments over that 18 months. Well, maybe there'll be individual deals will be slightly different than that. So sometimes it's not good to automate too much and just have more work to be done instead of on the modeling side of it, more work to be done on the input quantification side of it, because every time you change your assumptions, you're going to have to change a lot more inputs.
Right.
But these are things that all need to be figured out.
Absolutely, yeah. And in a repair projects or refitments, we work against to time a lot of times. It's just and there's always an overtime. If a project comes into be in the dry dock situation, I mean, time is running against you, and then day and night there's always going to be a work, so all those are variables.
Yeah, so the model could have some complexity to it. Now the good news is, if you've thought through, if you can show investors that you've thought through all that detail, and then that adds to your credibility and it adds to the likelihood that you're going to raise capital at a favorable valuation. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, these are basically just working capital assumptions, and now this stuff is this kind of stuff is standard across most
Right.
models. Okay, I didn't custom build this part of it for this model. Things like operating expenses in sales and marketing, and in general and administrative. Employees, I always put employees on their own separate tab,
Sure.
so that because that's a different beast. Okay, they fit into either sales and marketing or general and administrative, but I don't want to put them as itemized expenses with things like lease costs and stuff like that,
No. Yeah.
because employees are their own beast. They have ancillary expenses attached to them and medical insurance and things like that. So I put those in a separate tab. And then, I just we put a code here telling the model where to allocate it. So this CMO guy is going to be, this 170 grand in year 3 is going to make its way into the income statement in the sales and marketing line, because that's what we've told it to do through that
Mm-hmm.
code. So, employees I always put employees on their own tab. Long-term assets, this is very important for you guys because you're going to need a lot of equipment.
Oh yeah.
Basically, it'll be some variation that looks something like this, where we put in when we expect to make capital expenditures in each category, and then for each of those capital expenditures, what is the depreciation period?
Right.
These are just some calculations to approximate a beginning balance sheet. Capital, this is, where we would enter sources of funding that we know about.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it all zero? Because the whole point of this exercise is to figure out how much money we need to raise. If we knew that a loan was coming in at a certain point, then we would put it in here, for instance, right? And then that would shrink the funding gap. Then this curve would get smaller because we've already identified some funding. But right now we haven't identified any funding, so we need to tell the investor how much we need. We need to know how much we need, of course, first and foremost.
Absolutely.
So I'll show you some of the valuation calculations here now. Yeah, but first, would you have any questions thus far?
No, so far it's self-explanatory. Yeah.
Okay. So valuation, we get to that magic number, which is net cash flow to equity, which is different than, net income. Net income that's just an accounting convention. It doesn't tell you anything about how much cash is coming in and out because of timing differences. Because of, if you spend $1 million on a piece of equipment today, that's not going to be reflected in the income statement, because that's a cash expenditure, but it's not an expense, an accounting expense. You're expensing it through the depreciation. So your cash flow is going to go down by $1 million in the first year if you've made $1 million investment in some piece of equipment for cash. So ultimately, the number we need to arrive at is this net cash flow to equity, because that's effectively what that is the dividend paying capacity of the company. Okay, so what does this tell us? This tells us that in the first year, we need to raise $3.5 billion. I'm sorry, $1 million.
Right.
To execute on this particular plan. And then the second year, we're going to need to raise another 14.3 million. So that has to come from the outside. But then in the third year, we've turned cash flow positive. So 6.6 million in free cash flow. What does that mean? That means that is what the investors collectively can pull out of the company at that point, and should pull out of the company, because you don't want to have excess cash on the balance sheet. It's sitting idle.
Exactly.
And then in the second year, 36.7, 77.4, and so on. And so these are the key numbers that we need to value. This is what the investors are buying. They're buying this row of numbers here.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me take you here. This is how I came up with a cost of capital. Usually I don't get nearly as complex with this for startup valuations, but this is the round numbers about 40%. We're assuming that is what the investor is going to demand as a return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
So now go over here. It pulls that number into here. This is the actual valuation. So what I've done in this case is I've done a discounted cash flow. I've taken every cash flow projected for the first 5 years explicitly, discounted it back at a 40% discount rate, and that gives me $8.5 million. Is the value, the present value of the first 5 years of cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this company is still not going to be anywhere close to a mature company in year 5. It's still going to be growing at a higher than, much higher rate than the economy. So then I have to make some simplifying assumptions. Typically you don't do a 10-year projection or a 15-year projection unless it's something like a hugely capital-intensive project. Like another client of mine is a hydrogen producer and distributor here in the Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be building massive, billions of dollars worth of stuff over about a 9-year period.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's going to take time for each of those facilities to ramp up. So I built a 15-year model for them. But generally, you don't want to go more or less than 5. Usually 5 is the right number. Another example where you want to do a longer period is a biotech company because you're dealing with all the FDA approval process.
Right,
so,
right.
You're not going to make a penny for 11 years or whatever it is, okay? But in this case, we would do a 5-year, and I might do a simplifying assumption for the second 10-year because ultimately you want to know what the company is worth when it reaches steady state. And it's not going to reach steady state in year 5 because it's still growing very quickly. In year 10, I've assumed it's going to reach about steady state, and then it's going to be, a constant rate of growth of 5% from there on out. And then there's a formula here called the dividend discount model or the Gordon growth model or whatever to simplify what a terminal value. How would you value the company at the end of the projection period?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, for eternity, what are the cash flows for eternity from then on worth today?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like three stories of a house, really, right? So you got the first 5 years, second 5 years, and then from year 6 to eternity, and they add those all up, and we get to this number.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Charts are, these are. It really depends on what the business looks like. What are meaningful charts? Typically you want to put in the business plan summary charts that show what the various divisions do in revenue, what the things like what net revenue is and operating. Summaries of high level summaries, but also you want to look at underlying assumptions. So in this case, subscribers at year end, or total amount raised every year, or monthly subscription fees, total ventures funded. The relevant underlying assumptions. So when the reader of the business plan looks at it, they say, okay, well, all right, I see these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
but how did you come up with these numbers? Okay, well, you're looking at this many total ventures funded in each year. All right, well, I see now kind of how you got to these numbers because I see these, and
Mm-hmm.
sources and uses. This is just something to put in the business plan to tell them what the ask is and what you're going to use it for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's very thrilled.
So again, the point is that the short-term objectives that we discussed earlier are twofold. management, budgeting, and planning. Okay, you have to keep it really is a lot of trial and error. Okay,
Yeah.
what we need to do is get the math right. We need to get the formulas right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that when we put the inputs, they're calculating the outputs appropriately. The inputs are always going to change, though. But the important thing is to have a tool that you can make those changes in on the fly. Secondly, you want something that, and I realize this isn't something that, anybody can look at and right away, okay, yeah, I know how to use this, okay? Because
Yeah.
when I look at, I've been doing this kind of modeling for, 30, 35 years, okay? But if somebody sends me their model, it's going to take me a long time to figure it out. It's not like reading a book or reading I have to get into their mind, and very often, other people's models are so damn complex that, whatever, it's not user friendly. But it's always easier, even for me or for somebody else who's very familiar with this kind of stuff, it's easier if I explain it to them or they explain it to me.
Absolutely.
So there's still going to be some explanation, regardless of how, if I do my job well, it's very user friendly. But even if I do my job well, there's still going to need to be some explanation. But the point is, after they figure it out and they play with it for a while, then they, being the investors, should be able to go in and make changes on the fly to test various scenarios. And they're gonna say, well, E-Ray says the revenue should be this much. Well, I think it should be 20% less. E-Ray says that the expenses should be this much. Well, I think the expenses should be 20% more. They're always going to be, because they have a different interest than you do.
They do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, of course, what you want to do and what we want to do is come in with estimates that are conservative, so that they don't look at them and say, you're BSing me here, man. This is not, how could you possibly expect this much? No, you wanted them to look at something and say, okay, this is very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to bargain with you.
Oh, yeah.
On the other hand, if you have 10 investors breathing down your neck, then they don't have much bargaining power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you only have one investor, then they have all the bargaining power.
Oh, yeah.
So ultimately, we do the best we can to come up with the most realistic numbers possible.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always going to be a negotiation.
Oh, yeah. Always. In the world we live in.
Yeah, in the world anybody's in, it's just human nature.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, pretty good. Well, yeah, I mean, I can easily picture this in my mind, and I can, of course, well, in our times that during the preparation, I'll be mastering this probably, and then be able to do the presentation on my own as well.
Yeah, absolutely, you will be able to, because you'll know it well, and you'll be able to. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I do get involved in the presentation part of it when needed, but you probably won't need me for that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks pretty convincing to me with all these details. I mean, I like the evaluation. I like the fact that 5 years from today, it's easy to see where we stand. Hopefully, in the given market conditions,
Yeah, I mean, look, round numbers. How long do you think it would take to get up and running?
I mean, realistically, all we need is we need a power power plant. What do you call we make our own power resource transformers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a transformer room. It costs about $60,000 for a small unit. Once they have the power in place, and the ducts I'm gonna have to finish the bulkheads and the piers. Um, I'm estimating about, literally, if we do everything well, just 7 8 months, I can start putting things together um, on the floor. I mean, I can start doing something. Um, Realistically, I mean, winters aren't too harsh in that climate, in that region. Um, we have only maybe 1 or 2 60 days of bad weather conditions. Other than
Mm-hmm.
the other 300 days is pretty much all very convenient to do work outside. So construction won't be affected. Probably I'm just gonna lose the January and the February. Other than that, I mean, probably if I started by the new year sometime, I think we can start doing some work like late August, September
Of 2026.
2026.
Okay, so if we were to, let's say we started the projection period on January 1st of 2026,
Right.
then we could assume that 6 months later you're accepting orders.
Absolutely.
And then how long is the cycle from the time you get an order to the time you deliver the ship?
Uh, Depending on the size, of course, but on something that's 7 to 9,000 dev-ton vessel to be built, it's roughly 1 year in today's given opportunities with the new machineries and everything. 1 year.
Okay, so about a year lead time, and then round numbers, with what you have to buy, how many vessels do you think you could? How many vessels? What's the capacity? In other words, how many vessels could you build based on what you're based on the capacity
I
you're
could
building? Do you think?
I could deliver a vessel the time that I need. Okay, here is how things are. Just like when we start building, the vessels in modular groups. So let's put like a mid-size vessel that's a dry bulk carrier or a container carrier, something in a small size. I'm not talking about the Panamax or Supramax size. Those are something we couldn't handle yet because of the water draft situation in that area. But we can definitely do mid sizes, and those are modular. Let's say on a mid size vessel, it's gonna have 8 pieces, 8 pieces that we have to connect together. And the area that I'm gonna use to put everything together before giving it to water, it takes about in if everything goes well, anywhere from 75 days to 90 days. The spot that I use to put everything together, that that's the area I'm gonna be utilizing most. So, but all the modular pieces are getting to be put together. I have plenty of area that I can just prepare all the pieces and just bring them onto the spot. That's where I'm gonna just bring it together. That So every 3 months I can put a new vessel in the water, and the pier I can park, and rest of the work for interior to be completed, like all those electrical work, all the the devices to be connected, and all the other work, they can be done on the water while they are parked on the pier. So and I can park about 4 vessels on my pier. So on the new constructions, I can start an order today, and then I can start another one at the same time on the new buildings. If I had 10 ship order for, say, around the same sizes, I can deliver them in 3 years.
Okay, so round number. So some of them are going to have to wait a year, and some of them are going to have to wait 3 years.
Exactly.
Is what you're telling me.
Exactly.
Okay, that's if you get all the orders at once. So, so round numbers, about 4 deliveries a year is kind of capacity.
Pretty much so, yes.
Okay, so then you should be able to get to capacity utilization pretty quickly. It's going to take, let's say, I mean, you said about 6 or 8 months to get up and running, but let's say a year, okay?
Yeah.
So if we start business in a year, and then basically we would start doing deliveries in 2 years. We would start generating some revenue because it's percentage completion in a year. So we start generating revenue in year 2, but we start delivering at the beginning of year 3. And then basically 4 vessels a year, you're at capacity well before the 5-year period is done.
Correct.
Well before the 5-year projection period, if we're going to do 5 years projections. And then after that, we don't have to model for a lot of additional growth because you're kind of at steady state at that point.
Very much so, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we wouldn't have to do like a 10 or a 15-year model because that does complicate things a lot, believe it or not. I know it doesn't seem that it would on the surface, but we don't. I don't think we do.
We don't.
So if we just go with a 5-year model, that should be sufficient, and that'll be sufficient to do evaluation and all of that.
I agree, yeah. And George, one of the partners, the 25% shareholder partner, he's a architectural engineer for naval architecture. So he's a good asset to us. We can always get him on the conversations. He can join, and we can of course get some very good details from him. In case that I mean, I would like to. I think he should join, and we do it together.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly. I mean, it would certainly be critical on the costing side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be very important.
And there's a big income for
maintenance and repairs.
Maintenance and repairs.
Yeah.
Refitments. They are required to go for inspection depending on the vessel type, vessel. The flag they carry on, and then the Lloyd registry they have. It's required to go 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years are most of them. And they are mainly needing a bottom cleanup, painting, machinery checkups, and they can be done on the water. We can definitely service them with the cranes. And that's a great income in a short times. There's a ballast water treatment system was required to be installed on the older vessels. If you heard of it, and how that system needed to be installed on pretty much for all the vessels, and then those projects were depending on the size of the ship. It would take about anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 weeks to 8 weeks of time period, and
Mm-hmm.
this was a great source of income. And then in a short time period, I know my partner used to bill like from 200,000 to $500,000 easy for
Okay.
for a short time work. They worked nonstop, I know, and there was also a cost for equipment and the dry docking cost. But those repairs are always they are in demand, especially in that area.
Okay. Okay. So I think that the business plan, the narrative, should be somewhat that should be somewhat straightforward in this case. Okay.
Right.
The modeling could get a little complex, um, but I think the business plan portion of it should be somewhat straightforward. Pretty straightforward, really. Um, the PowerPoint deck. Let me talk a little bit about that because I think that's one of the things you checked off, and you probably will need that. But here's the
Right.
thing: once I've written a business plan, it's very easy for me to put together a PowerPoint deck. And when I say a PowerPoint deck, what I mean is one for presentation purposes. Something with very few words on the page and a lot of graphics on the page. You don't want to have a lot of words on the page in a PowerPoint deck that you're using for presentation purposes, because then all your audience is going to do is going to be reading the screen instead of listening to you. So you've lost it. You do not want a lot of words on the page. So
Right.
if I do a deck for you, it's not going to be a lot of time, because if I've already written business plans, it's going to be very easy for me to write those bullet points. Now, the graphics, you're going to want to have one of your people do it, or if you know somebody, we have people we use. If we don't care. I mean, we just pass it on at cost to you. That's not.
Sure.
We have no interest in who does it.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is my involvement with the graphics person would be, okay, here's the text I want you to put in it. And I would just write the text in a PowerPoint deck and, the bullets and then I would do some mock-ups, some descriptions of the kinds of graphics I'd like to see created. Okay?
Right.
And then the graphics person creates those graphics that I and you have given them to create. Okay? And then we have a deck. My point is that a deck's not going to take a lot of my time.
Good. Good.
And I always recommend against doing a deck that's supposed to be a standalone. Like, instead of sending them a business plan, sending them a deck that's basically the same content as a business plan. Why? Because I truly believe that decks are overused these days. Decks are great for presentations, but for communicating information that you're going to read, I just think as human beings, we have been writing paragraphs for thousands of years, and that's the way we communicate, and that's the way our brains receive things. When somebody sends me a deck to read, it takes me a lot longer to read it than it would if they just sent me a business plan. And not only that, it takes a lot more time. The logistics of putting together a deck and moving boxes around and stuff like that. There's no reason to do that when you can just write a business plan and type it in and write paragraphs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, having said that, you will need a deck. You will need a presentation deck.
I think so. Yeah.
So that you can present it. But again, that's going to be, I would do that last, and I would work with a graphic design person to do that.
Okay.
Whether it's your guys or my guys or whatever it is, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Doesn't
Sure.
matter.
Yeah. At this point, if it's cost effective to get somebody that it's, and I know, don't matter, as long as you get the final product is what we want.
Ultimately, it's got to be somebody you're comfortable with the graphics,
Sure.
that they produce.
Yeah. I think I run into somebody back in the time who had did it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. And yeah, this will be all right. I will be discussing with my partners at some time. Probably, I usually try to get up early so I catch their noon time in Turkey. So I will send them messages right now and request a meeting before noon to discuss this with them. And once I get everybody on the same page, hopefully we'll give it a start.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and you got my email with the sort of language from the engagement agreement?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So if you have any questions about that, I mean that's not an engagement agreement, obviously, but I just put some content in it, and
Sure.
that broad content. Probably, if we were to agree to do it hourly, it'd probably look a lot like that.
Okay.
But please, let me know if you have any questions about any of that.
Already, I mean, you've been great help. Thank you so much, George.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for staying up late to.
Oh, you kidding?
To do
No,
this.
it's happens to us once we, these are good things happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
tell me again, because that's still real. I want to know exactly how to pronounce your name. How do you pronounce it?
Oh, it's like put a ERI like you would write it in English like ER letter I. How would you read it?
Eri.
Yes.
Eri, and the accent is on the second syllable. Eri or Eri.
Eri. Like we have the Eri, exactly. Then I would write it like EARI.
EARY.
I. Yes. Eri.
Eri.
Yep.
Okay. So like like an and then rye as in rye bread.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. As you might imagine, people ask how to pronounce my last name all the time.
How do you say it again? I'm sure you have a better.
Well, in Greek, it's Papaiwano.
Papaiwano.
I tell Americans, Papiano.
Papiano, right.
My oldest friends in the world still don't know how to spell my name, and every time I've dated a girl and she knows how to spell my name, and I think, oh shit, I'm in trouble now. She knows how to spell my name,
Yeah,
so.
we like as you can imagine, we are in Long Island, New York, and we have many Greek places in Astoria.
Yeah.
I and my wife like to go out to eat, dine, and go to the taverns, and the music is always nice, very similar to what we like. So
yeah, Astoria is great.
Oh yeah.
There's some good Turkish places out by me in New Jersey that we go to with my parents. I love Turkish food. It's such similar food.
Oh yeah,
Have you ever seen a movie called Politiki Cuisina? I don't know. You've seen it?
It's in New Jersey. This one?
No, there's a movie called Politiki Cuisina, and it's about. I haven't seen it in years. It's a wonderful movie. It's just about people, Greeks and Turks cooking together, and of course, Armenian. I mean, there's a lot of Armenian.